I'm David Domzalski, and I own all of Miami-Dade County. It's 2 territories encompassing South Beach, Miami, and the greater Miami area. I was working for Barmetrix for 10 years, actually it might have been 11. Right before, I was the director of operations for the global company. I trained all the new franchisees and then coached them on their businesses. I created all the training processes that we had at that point and managed and worked with the technology team to develop new additions to the software and anything else we needed technology-wise, and then anything else that Ray or Sean needed me to do. I had thought about owning my own franchise for a very long time, on and off. I was always afraid to do it, to be honest. That was the biggest barrier, was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, I don't know if I can do it. Even though I was coaching others and talking to others, and a lot of people were like, you can do this, this is totally within your scope, and you'd be great at it. I had a lot of fear around it, so that was my biggest barrier. In the last 2 or 3 years leading up, I realized that I'd met a sort of a cap in what I was doing and was getting restless. I get very restless usually in 3 years. It was actually a testament to how interesting the company was to me at that point, that I'd been with Barmetrix for 10 years. I was the longest I've ever spent with a corporation. I was a transducer design engineer for Polk Audio. 3 years, couldn't do it anymore. I was designing loudspeakers, playing video games, watching movies, and testing stuff, and that got boring. So it was interesting enough, but I needed more. And it was a conversation with my fiance at the time. She suggested, she's like, if you're gonna try to do something different in your life, why don't you own a franchise? And I gave her all my usual excuses, and she cut them down one after another. Leading up to that actually was a conversation he didn't know, but I had with a guy named Danny Bro. He owns New Orleans. He just said offhand, talking about what he was doing, he's like, you know what, man? I love making owner money. I never want to go back to making employee money again. And I was like, oh wow, yeah, you know what, that sounds great. And that was a sort of a catalyst in that conversation for me to be receptive to that. But I knew for a long time that I wanted Barmetrix to be the last company I ever worked with, because the people that I worked with, because my mentorship from Sean and from Ray, from all sorts of people in the company, actually even other franchisees were mentoring me at that point, helping me with stuff. So the idea of going to something else entirely or staying inside and owning my own franchise was an easy one to make that way. Simply, I help them. I help them in ways that they sometimes know they need it, but they have no idea how to start. And other times in ways that they had absolutely no idea they needed, and that's usually both for every client. On a simple level, I produce or I gather information and data that I can then advise them on. On a more complex level, I'm constantly looking for minute ways that sometimes are ridiculously simple organizational kind of things to very complex cost of goods, product mix, and positioning in the market kind of ways. But ultimately, the final answer is I'm always trying to help them. Freedom. There was a guy named Jason who spoke for us one year at one of our global conferences, and his entire presentation was about building options for yourself in your life. And it resonated with a lot of us, and still does. We talk about it more than almost any other presentation we've ever gotten. I recognize that for me personally, I needed the freedom to choose exactly what I wanted to do to create those options in my life. And man, I mean, between the fact that Barmetrix is not a traditional franchise organization and that they don't control and tell you what you have to do, to just being a business owner in general and getting to have that day-to-day where I don't have a boss anymore, it's just an amazing amount of freedom.